Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Emily Carter. With more than 2 decades of in-depth research in urology and neuroscience, I have encountered countless couples who come to my office feeling frustrated because their intimate lives have grown cold. One of the most common reasons is not a lack of love, but a profound lack of understanding of anatomy and widespread misconceptions about where female pleasure actually originates. In this first section, we will uncover the shocking truth about the G-spot and why the clitoris should be the top priority for women. 1. The shocking truth about the G-spot and women's true priority. For many years, the media and popular discussions about sex have elevated the G-spot to a mythical status, portraying it as a universal key capable of unlocking female pleasure. However, scientific reality tells a very different story. Based on a groundbreaking study surveying 451 sexually active women, the findings surprised many experts. When participants were asked to map the most sensitive areas of their bodies, only 59% identified regions inside the vagina, where the G-spot is believed to be located, as pleasure-producing zones. In contrast, an overwhelming 82% of women stated that areas of the vulva were the most important sources of sensitivity for them. This means that for the vast majority of women, the epicenter of sexual arousal is not deep inside the body or dependent on forceful penetration. Instead, it is located externally, the clitoris, the only organ dedicated solely to pleasure. This striking 82% figure can be explained by the unique neurological structure of the clitoris. It is the only organ in the human body that exists purely for pleasure and serves no other biological function, such as reproduction or excretion. The clitoris contains an exceptionally dense network of nerves, with approximately 8,000 to 10,000 nerve endings concentrated in a very small area. To put this sensitivity into perspective, the number of nerve endings in the clitoris is roughly double that found in the entire penis. Male misconceptions and an overlooked reality. Despite scientific evidence clearly demonstrating that the clitoris is the most highly ranked and consistently responsive pleasure zone, far surpassing the G-spot or the vaginal canal, many men tend to rush past it. They often focus excessively on deep penetration or on locating the G-spot, while failing to devote sufficient attention to the true control center of female pleasure. Understanding that 82% of women prioritize external stimulation over internal stimulation represents a major paradigm shift. If you focus solely on the G-spot, you are neglecting the area that the majority of women identify as the primary source of their sexual satisfaction. This disconnect not only reduces overall pleasure, but can also leave women feeling misunderstood, eventually leading to a decline in their desire for intimacy. For this reason, the first step toward mastering intimacy is a fundamental shift in mindset. Stop treating the G-spot as the sole objective and begin prioritizing the clitoris, the place where 82% of women are silently hoping for your attention. This shift in focus is not based on intuition or anecdote, but on solid data drawn from neurological anatomy and scientific research. Continuing from the previous section, I am Dr. Emily Carter. After understanding why 82% of women prioritize external stimulation, we now need to explore the very heart of this arousal. In Part 2, I will decode why the clitoris is one of the most misunderstood biological marvels in the history of medical science. 2. Decoding the only organ dedicated solely to pleasure. To truly master intimacy, you must understand that you are not dealing with a small spot, but rather an entire complex system of nerves and erectile tissue, a massive neural network. The clitoris is a masterpiece of evolution. Research shows that it contains between 8,000 and 10,000 nerve endings concentrated within an extremely small area. To help you grasp the intensity of this sensitivity, that number is more than double the total number of nerve endings found in the entire male penis. This is precisely why this region responds intensely to even the slightest movement. Even more remarkably, the clitoris is the only organ in the human body that exists purely to serve pleasure, with no other biological functions such as reproduction or excretion. The iceberg principle: 10% visible, 90% hidden. The biggest mistake most men make is believing that what they see is all that exists. In reality, the small external portion located above the vulva, often referred to as the button, accounts for only about 10% to 15% of the clitoris's actual structure. The remainder of this organ extends deep inside the body, forming structures known as the clitoral legs, crura, which runs several inches along the vaginal canal. This means the clitoris is not merely a simple button to be pressed, but rather a complex network of erectile tissue that surrounds and connects to many of the pleasure-producing areas within the pelvis. The pleasure ecosystem. This clitoral network includes internal structures that connect directly to what is commonly referred to as the G-spot, the urethral sponge, and other deep vaginal regions. When a woman becomes aroused, this entire system engorges and transmits arousal signals throughout the pelvic region. Understanding this anatomy fundamentally changes your approach. Instead of rushing to attack a single point, you must begin to see it as an interconnected system. Stimulating surrounding areas such as the labia majora and labia minora is, in fact, indirectly stimulating the clitoral legs and bulbs hidden beneath the surface. This creates waves of pleasure that radiate through the entire body, rather than a sharp, localized sensation confined to one point. This anatomical understanding is the key to moving beyond clumsy techniques toward refined connection. It allows you to recognize that every external touch is awakening a vast neurological system concealed deep within her body. With 2 decades of research experience in neuroscience and urology, I have witnessed countless cases in which couples struggled not because of a lack of love, but because of physiological misunderstandings during intimacy. After establishing the importance of the clitoris in the previous sections, we will now analyze the most common mistakes men tend to make. Errors that unintentionally extinguish arousal and fracture emotional connection. 3. Common mistakes that shut down arousal. The biggest mistake: direct stimulation too early. Based on both clinical experience and in-depth research, I can confidently state that the most serious mistake men commonly make is going straight to direct clitoral stimulation at the very beginning. From a neurological perspective, an unprepared clitoris is extremely sensitive in a negative way to strong stimulation. Touching this area directly and forcefully right away is comparable to someone grabbing a man's testicles tightly without any warm-up. This action does not produce pleasure. On the contrary, it causes discomfort, sometimes even pain, and can instantly shut down arousal. A woman's body requires time for blood flow to increase, allowing the clitoral tissues to become engorged and for natural lubrication to begin. Without this physiological preparation, any direct contact becomes overwhelming to the nervous system. Excessive pressure. Less is more. Another widespread misconception is the belief that stronger pressure leads to greater pleasure. However, with 8,000 to 10,000 nerve endings concentrated in such a small area, the clitoris is more sensitive than any other part of the human body. Applying excessive pressure quickly creates a sensation of being overstimulated and uncomfortable rather than pleasurable. The correct technique I consistently teach is the use of gentle, steady pressure. I often ask my patients to imagine the lightest pressure they would use when touching their own eyeball. That is the ideal starting level of pressure for the clitoris. Incorrect technique and rhythm. Many women have told me that their partners rub the clitoris as if they were scratching a lottery ticket. This rough, fast, and erratic movement frequently leads to discomfort and causes women to gradually avoid intimacy altogether. Physiologically, women respond far better to stimulation that is varied yet rhythmic, beginning gently and gradually increasing in intensity based on the body's feedback. A small but highly effective anatomical tip is to use the flat pad of the finger rather than just the fingertip. This distributes pressure more evenly, avoids sharp sensations, and creates the feeling of a soft wave spreading outward. Observing body language, such as breathing patterns and subtle movements of the hips, is key to understanding whether you are moving in the right direction. After analyzing the common mistakes discussed in the previous section, I would now like to focus on practical solutions that can completely transform your experience. Based on research in neuroscience, the key does not lie in obsessing over a single point, but in understanding the networked system as a whole. In Part 4, we will learn how to master indirect stimulation techniques and awaken the entire clitoral network. 4. Indirect stimulation techniques and the clitoral network. Indirect warm-up. The principle of warming the body. One of the most important lessons drawn from the scientific literature is this: never begin with direct clitoral stimulation. Think of the female body like that of an athlete who needs to warm up. You cannot sprint at full speed without stretching first. According to research, indirect stimulation helps build anticipation and gives the body time to increase blood flow, engorge sensitive tissues, and initiate natural lubrication. You should begin by touching the areas surrounding the sensitive zone, gently stroking the inner thighs, lightly touching the mons pubis, softly caressing the labia majora and labia minora. Studies show that the areas surrounding the clitoris and the vaginal opening are consistently rated by women as highly pleasurable zones. Focusing on these regions first prepares her nervous system for direct contact later, stimulating the hidden iceberg, the internal clitoral network. As previously discussed, the externally visible portion of the clitoris accounts for only 10% to 15% of its total structure. The majority, including the clitoral legs, crura, lies hidden beneath the surface and extends along the vaginal canal. Scientific sources emphasize that the clitoris is a network, not a simple button. To effectively stimulate this network, you can apply the following technique. Place your thumb and index finger on opposite sides of the labia majora. Then, gently squeeze and massage, using a slow rolling motion, moving gradually from top to bottom. This action indirectly stimulates the clitoral legs and bulbs deep beneath the surface without overwhelming the external sensitive point. Professional hand technique. A small yet crucial detail lies in how you use your fingers. Scientific sources recommend using the flat pad of the finger or thumb rather than just the fingertip. Using the flat surface distributes pressure more evenly, creating a softer sensation and reducing the sharpness experienced by thousands of nerve endings. When this full network stimulation technique is performed correctly, the resulting sensation is one of deep, full-body arousal, rather than a localized feeling confined to a single point. One woman in a study described that when her partner learned to stimulate the entire system instead of frantically rubbing one spot, her orgasms became a truly whole-body transformative experience. Remember, stimulate the entire system. Do not fixate on a single button. After exploring the vast neural network of the clitoris and the importance of refined touch techniques, we now enter a critical phase that I often refer to as the decisive transition stage. In clinical practice, I have observed many couples who perform foreplay very well, only to lose all momentum the moment intercourse begins. Part 5 will explain why this happens and how to maintain that flame. 5. The importance of maintaining stimulation during intercourse. The truth about orgasm through penetration. A common misconception is that vaginal penetration alone is sufficient to bring women to climax. However, scientific data from the literature I rely on reveals a very different reality. Only about 18% to 25% of women are able to reach orgasm through vaginal penetration alone. This means that a vast majority, between 75% and 82% of women, require clitoral stimulation during penetration in order to reach climax. If you treat foreplay merely as a warm-up and stop all external stimulation once intercourse begins, you are unintentionally cutting off the primary pathway to her pleasure. The stopping too soon mistake. This is the fourth major mistake on the list of common errors I frequently address with couples. Many men mistakenly believe that once penetration begins, the clitoris has finished its job. In reality, when clitoral stimulation stops, a woman's level of arousal can drop rapidly. Scientific sources consistently confirm that female satisfaction is significantly higher when clitoral stimulation is maintained throughout intercourse, rather than being limited to foreplay alone. Solutions and coordinated techniques. To avoid this mistake, you need to apply a strategy of continuous stimulation. Manual stimulation. You can continue using your hand or encourage her to stimulate her own clitoris during intercourse. This ensures that the most sensitive neural network remains continuously activated. Strategic position selection. Certain positions naturally create better friction for the clitoris. Research suggests positions in which the woman's pelvis tilts forward, such as woman on top or certain standing positions. These angles increase surface contact and provide consistent pressure on the clitoral area with each movement. Based on my experience, when couples make this simple adjustment, maintaining clitoral stimulation until the woman is fully satisfied, they often report that their sex life shifts from average to deeply fulfilling. Never allow penetration to interrupt the flow of pleasure that you have carefully built from the very beginning. Hello everyone, I am Dr. Emily Carter. After exploring anatomy and refined techniques together, we now arrive at the final and most important section, where all of this knowledge is brought together. In practice, even the most advanced techniques become meaningless without connection and mutual understanding between two individuals. Part 6 provides the ultimate master key, communication, and a 7-step protocol for mastering intimacy. 6. Communication and the 7-step protocol to master intimacy. Communication, the ultimate technique. The biggest and most critical mistake I frequently observe is the assumption that all women respond the same way. In reality, pleasure is a deeply individualized experience. What works wonderfully for one woman may be completely ineffective for another. Every woman has her own preferences regarding pressure, speed, rhythm, and technique. Some prefer circular motions, while others respond better to side or up and down movements. For this reason, communication is the ultimate technique capable of transforming a sexual relationship. You should ask open-ended questions such as, "How does that feel when I touch you there?" Or simple yes, no questions like, "Would you like me to go faster or slower?" Reading body language. In addition to verbal communication, observing physiological responses is essential. Positive signs include rapid or deepened breathing, moaning, pelvic movements toward your hand, and increasing muscle tension. Conversely, if she becomes quiet, tenses up, or subtly pulls away, these are signals that the pressure may be too strong or the pace too fast. The 7-step protocol to reach fulfillment. Based on scientific research, I have synthesized the following structured process to help ensure you never lose your way. Full body foreplay. Begin with deep kissing and touching the neck, chest, and thighs to build overall arousal and increase full body blood flow. Indirect stimulation. Spend at least 5 to 10 minutes caressing the mons pubis, inner thighs, and labia without directly touching the clitoris, allowing anticipation to build. Gentle initial contact. Using lubrication and the flat pad of the finger, begin with extremely light circular movements around the clitoris. Gradual escalation. Increase pressure and speed slowly and only in response to her reactions. Never jump abruptly to intense stimulation. Stimulating the entire network. Massage the labia majora and labia minora to indirectly activate the clitoral legs hidden deep within the body, creating deeper arousal. Maintain stimulation during intercourse. Continue clitoral stimulation manually or choose positions that create natural friction. Do not stop until she is fully satisfied. Continuous communication. Keep checking in and adjusting your technique based on your partner's feedback throughout the experience. Mastering and correctly applying this protocol not only increases the likelihood of female orgasm from roughly 20% to a far more consistent level, but also strengthens emotional connection and trust between partners. Remember, prioritizing your partner's pleasure is the key to opening a deeply fulfilling new chapter in your relationship.